Hi everybody, this is Maureen Wong for YourNextStamp.com. On our YNS feature day recently, I made this card, and it uses the piercing holes die set and the circles die set. And I just got the piercing holes die set and found out that it makes the perfect size holes for hand stitching. And I really love hand stitching on my cards every now and then because I think it gives it a really nice look. And especially if you're going to use something like felt, or I use some of the stitching looking stamps in the stripes and stitching set. And I just think it's a really neat look. So I've been playing with them a little while today and wanted to show you different ways you can use the dies and different things that you can use to sew. And if you've never done hand sewing on your cards, hopefully you'll give it a try after you watch this video. So for the very beginners, I wanted to tell you the things that I use. First of all, I use tapestry needles, and this is a size 22. And the reason why I like tapestry needles is because they have really big eyes. You can see here. It has a really big eye, and it's got a blunt tip. If you poke yourself hard enough, it will hurt, but it's not gonna poke right through your skin like a sewing needle would. So I really like using these tapestry needles. And then another thing that I use are these dental floss threaders. They come in a pack at the drugstore like this. And I use these for threading my needles. And it's really simple. It's just like threading a needle with a regular needle threader. You put this in through the eye of your needle. And what I'm using is embroidery floss. This is the whole thing. I haven't separated out any of the threads. This is the whole skein. And you just pull it through. And it does a great job. One of my other tips is if you're going to be hand sewing on your paper, don't make a knot at the end of your thread because it's going to make a bump on the back of your card or on the back of your panel that you're sewing. So what I like to do is just take a piece of regular tape and tape that down, and then I start sewing. And now the first thing you can see is that this is kind of what I think anybody would think of their first time using the dies is you get the circle die with the matching piercing hole die, and it makes a nice circle of pierced holes just inside the edge of the circle. And one of the easiest stitches you can do is the whip stitch, which is just you come up through the back and then go over the edge, come up through the back again, go over the edge and come out over the back, over the side, and then you just keep going, and it makes a nice little stitching detail around your circle. And you can see that it has a slight slant to it. One thing you can do to make this even more fun is you'll notice that it has a slight slant in the direction that you're stitching. Well, if you come back and stitch in the other direction, you'll get this look. Instead of just the one row, you'll get like a zigzag on the edge. And then this is another way to use the dies. Instead of using the coordinating circle that's the same size, you can use one that's a little smaller, and then you can see the difference, how much room there is at the edge, so that your stitching actually really shows up nicely. This is kind of a subtle effect. It's still really nice though, but this gives you a little more focus on the sewing. And for this, I told you I was using embroidery floss. This is actually crochet thread. You get it in this big ball, or they have them in little packs, I think. And I used 2 strands to make this. Another thing you can use is baker's twine. And the thing about baker's twine though is it's a little thick. I couldn't get it threaded through my needle, although you probably can. So what I did was I actually used the dental floss threader as my needle. So I'm just doing that simple whip stitch again, and I come through the back with my baker's twine, stick it through that hole, and then pull it through, and it actually will come through the holes. And you can just use this like a needle, and it works just fine for thicker baker's twine. And that's a really nice look too, because baker's twine comes in a lot of different colors and styles. This particular one is from Trendy Twine, and it has 2 different colors of green in it, which I really like. They also have blends with 2 colors in white in them that are really nice. So yeah, there's lots to choose from out there. Another thing you can do is you can not use the circle die and just use the piercing holes die in your shape. Like this is a square, this is a 4 1/4 inch square, and then what you would do is you would do a back stitch around the circle, and then what I've done here is I've actually put some beads on there. They're really, really tiny little seed beads, and I put just one over here, and then I put 2 over here, and I probably could fit 3. And then for that you can use regular sewing thread. There's this really fine, very, very strong beading thread. And then what I would recommend also are these beading needles. They're basically just twisted wire, and so they're really, really thin, and they can handle the smallest seed beads. If you're using bigger beads, you don't have to worry about it too much, and you can use a regular sewing needle or something. But for really small seed beads, the beading needle is a great investment. And then another thing you can do building on this is instead of you use the piercing holes die, and then instead of using the circle on the outside, I put the circle on the inside, and you can see that it gives a nice effect going that way. And then one more thing I wanted to show you was I got this iridescent shred from my craft store. I think it's meant for putting in presents, so you might be able to find it other places, but it's really, really pretty, and it's really thin, and there are actually long strands in here, and so they're long enough to sew with. So I've actually taken a piece of that, and you can see what a neat effect it is. It's really thin, so you think it won't show up nicely, but it has that nice iridescence to it, and it gives just an extra little special touch to your project. You can use this with thread or without. If you use it with thread, just make sure your thread isn't hiding the iridescent shred. So you would want to lay it on top. So maybe you stitch with your thread first and then with the iridescent shred, so you make sure that it sits on top of it. And that just gives a really neat look. And my last thing is going back to this card I made. I just did a blanket stitch around the edge with my 1 full skein of embroidery floss, and I just did a Google search for the blanket stitch and found videos on how to do that, and that is a really cute effect too. I really like the look of that. So I hope this gives you some tips and tricks for doing your hand sewing on your cards using the new, well, it's not new actually, the piercing holes dies and the circle dies. And I hope you'll give it a try, and if you do, please let us know so we can come and look at your projects. And we hope to see you over at yournextstamp.com. Thank you very much for watching.